Good evening and welcome to The Right Side, the show where we talk about today's issues, trends, and news from an admittedly conservative perspective. I'm your host, Chris Pareja, and this evening we're going to have a little bit of fun. Howard Myers is with us. He's the president of the Conservative Forum. And we're going to do something we haven't done on the show yet, and that's just have a night where we just talk politics. Specifically, because of the most recent news of Mitt Romney choosing a running mate in Paul Ryan, wanted to get your perspectives on the strengths and weaknesses of that ticket. We'll talk a little bit about their competitors as we know them, Barack and Joe, Obama and Biden, as far as last names being associated for people who aren't on a first name basis with them. Let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about, were you surprised by Paul Ryan being announced as Mitt Romney's running mate?
Did he pick Paul Ryan? He was on everybody's short list. There was a couple that I really liked in terms of Marco Rubio and excuse me, and Alan West. They had a lot of fire, and they would have added a lot of fire and a lot of life to the campaign. Understand that West wasn't a real prime candidate at this time, but Rubio was being seriously considered.
Sure.
I understand maybe there were some things going on that made him maybe less attractive or whatever. But as far as Rubio, or excuse me, Paul Ryan was my solid second choice, really. And the thing is, because he's a solid conservative, and as the president of the Conservative Forum, I can say that I like this candidate because he's a conservative. I mean, that's he probably, if I could say that he was a Tea Party candidate before there was a Tea Party. But there, I'm sure people would point out there were some things he voted for, 10 years ago that weren't all that conservative, maybe. But still, he's a good, solid conservative, and that's I think that really adds a lot of strength and balance to that ticket. I think the word synergistic is overused, but it is synergistic, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And just because you did mention that you're the president, I'm assuming that we apply the disclaimer that the thoughts that you're conveying are yours and yours alone. Although
well, that's why I wanted to say, as I can make that statement as the president of the forum because he's conservative.
Okay.
We like conservative candidates, but yes, absolutely followed very quickly by a disclaimer because all the fun we're going to have tonight is just Howard Myers.
And the fun that's going to be embarrassing my wife is all Chris Pareja as well. So, as far as the strength, he's an attractive candidate from the intellectual perspective. He's also been noted by several females in the world that like tall, thin young men to be easy to look at. But as far as complimenting Mitt Romney's platform, I mean, honestly, I'm not really that big of a Mitt Romney fan. I am not a fan of Obama's policies, and so between the two, I would choose them. But I feel better about the Romney scenario. How about you? Do you feel now that that he's been chosen as the VP candidate, Paul Ryan? What are your opinions?
I think there's several things that that Mitt has surprised me on, and in a pleasant way. He wasn't my first choice. Mm-hmm. Mitt Romney during the primary, all the bashing each other and everything that was going on. Mitt Romney was, be quite honest with you, my own personal opinion, he was probably like my fourth or fifth choice, and that's giving him the benefit. Mm-hmm. There was several candidates I liked better. Mm-hmm. At the same time, now that he is it, other than the fact that I would rally behind anybody that would be running against the current administration and some of the policies I think they're doing that are damaging the nation. But Mitt is surprising me, and he's doing some things, and he's got more fire. At least now he's applying some of this fire that he applied to the other Republican candidates against the opposition.
Right.
And that's what some of us were afraid of. Is that okay? Yeah, you beat up your buddies in the trenches, but what about the enemy?
Right.
As we see the enemy, or as Mitt sees the enemy. But
right.
Is he going to be the same to the enemy as he is to his ally, so to speak?
Right.
And he turns out he is, and he is. I think he waited until after the Olympics. Now it's still starting to heat up a little bit, and we're seeing some real, I think, solid things that are happening. I think today, some of the ads that were coming out today about the $791 billion or something like that that was taken out of Medicare.
Yes.
And there's no question about it now, because we've got the president saying it in 2009 that that's where it came from. He took it out of the Medicare to put into Obamacare.
Sure.
And we can prove it on the records. And this is one of the things that I like about Paul Ryan, because he was sitting there reading it going right now, reading it through the book and saying, this is double counting. You can't count it here and count it here at the same time. And what's wrong with the medical plan, or the 2,200-page catastrophe?
Mm-hmm.
And so he was reading it down, and he understands it. He's analytical. His degree is he had a double major in economics and political science, and he applies it. You can tell it. He's sharp, and he has the tools to understand this. They're going to make it very clear to the American people, here is a choice. And I think everybody is agreeing now that we're even the opposition is saying that, okay, it's a choice of principles and ideas, not just people and not just mistakes, but ideas, and which idea is going to bring us where we need to be. And Paul Ryan, I think, adds a lot to being able to deliver that.
Oh, and also he has more of the blue collar feel to him than Mitt Romney. One of the things that he's attacked about frequently is he's wealthy and out of touch, although if you look at many of the donors who are contributing to the Democrat Party at $38,000 a plate, many of them have a lot more money than Romney, but he's the evil rich guy. So it's a double standard.
It's probably just really good food.
Yeah, it's $38,000. It
really
could be good food,
really good.
because I've not had a meal like that.
You read about Paul Ryan's background, and you're right. He did. I mean, when he was when he going to college and high school and college, he worked at McDonald's. Now, first of all, the guy was born in Wisconsin.
At least it wasn't Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the liberals would go nuts.
They're opening on August 23rd, Chick-fil-A, San Jose. I want to do an ad for him, but we're getting together there.
Okay.
So, but Paul Ryan was born in Wisconsin, and I was born in Wisconsin. So that's got to be a good thing.
Right.
We're about 80 miles apart.
But that's the birthplace of progressivism in the United States.
That's why I left. I was 5 years old. These
Left,
guys are
or
too
they
liberal.
threw you out at 5?
I'm not sure which. It's hard to remember. But yeah, it was getting a little too cold for me, so I left when I was 5.
Okay.
But so it was. That's interesting. Now, the other thing about him is, he worked as a salesman for Oscar Mayer one summer, or actually several summers. He actually did get to drive the Wienermobile once. Now, come on. How's that not good? I mean,
driving around in 40-foot hot dog.
Can you imagine? Yeah. The Wienermobile. Yeah, there's our VP.
People singing along. Yeah.
Yeah.
They should take it out as the tour bus for the campaign.
Yeah. They could put it in the Air Force One and carry it and pretend they drove it.
Yeah. There you go. So yeah, but I mean, he is the opposite on the ideological spectrum of some of the other candidates that you might have seen. He boasts about hunting and fishing and that kind of thing. And I heard an interesting story about him. I don't remember what the name of the technique is, but he actually goes fishing for catfish without a pole. He just goes in, wrestles them out of the water, and he's pulled out a 40-pounder.
We're not talking noodling, are we?
Is that what that's called?
Where you stick your arm in the hole and you get the catfish comes out and you...
Yeah, I believe that's the one.
I've seen a lot of videos on that. Not for me.
Yeah.
Thanks anyway.
So I mean, he's a manly man.
He's a noodler. Ooh.
Yeah.
It's more than I'll do. Huh?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Yeah.
It's interesting because I hadn't really thought that he brings more of a blue collar flavor to the ticket. But you're right. Maybe that's a feeling I had, but I didn't really realize it. But you mentioned that, and he does, and that adds the balance.
But one of the scary things is that he's taken a lot of heat. So as far as they've already, even as a congressman, he's had national ads run against him of pushing little old ladies over the cliff. Although his health care proposal would have, his modification of the Medicare system would have not done any changing for the first 10 years, and then after that actually preserved the length of the system. And then, as you mentioned, $700 billion comes out of Medicare right when we have the largest group of seniors of all time moving into the system. Yeah. And the Republicans are the ones that are demagogued just saying they want to kill grandma. And so it's interesting, but he has a better knowledge because of his analytical background that you described. He has better knowledge of a lot of the numbers and facts and figures of how the country is running than many of the professionals or the experts do. And I think more than, well, definitely more than Joe Biden does, but probably more than Obama as well. And so when it comes to the debates, if a VP's job is supposed to be the attack dog for the other team and for, in his case, the president specifically, to leave Mitt Romney appearing presidential while Paul Ryan does all the dirty work, he could be a formidable challenger for these guys.
Yeah, I think we're getting to the point now where everybody is, at least I think in the country, people are becoming aware that, yeah, there is a problem.
Yes.
And now the question is, which solution do you choose?
Right.
And we're actually getting to where people, I think, are looking at the facts and saying, okay, well, we're trying this, which one works?
Right.
And I think that it's time that now people are going to look at it and realize that, especially, I mean, this last one, like I said, it's hard to get around this $790 billion have been taken out of Medicare.
Right.
And in fact, Social Security, this tax break that people were getting, I don't know if they're still getting it now, that there were for a while, was actually just reducing the Social Security that was being taken out of your check, so that they're actually reducing the funding of Social Security.
Yes.
And I'm, that just seems like, nobody noticed.
Right. And now, I mean, so there is a stark contrast between the two teams. You've got Biden and Obama that are on one side of the spectrum, and they're very big into demagoguing the other side, so attacking Republicans constantly. For example, today video came out with Joe Biden speaking at a conference where a number of minorities were present, and said that now that Paul Ryan is chosen, and between him and Romney, they want to unchain the banks and those big banker types. And the slang was used, and put y'all back in chains, to an audience that had African Americans present, which is, it would be obscene. And if it were coming out from the other side, if Paul Ryan or Mitt Romney would do that, it would, the press would be on fire. But I'm not sure how many people have even heard about that scenario.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, when we were talking, was that the irony there is that it was actually the Republicans that removed the chains to begin with.
Yes, they were founded on the plank of abolishing slavery.
Right.
And so we're not focused on color content as much as character content, which is always interesting.
We could do a whole program on that.
We probably could, and we've done some snippets of that as well.
Fact.
But additionally, I mean, you've got the Romney would be associated as being pro-business, and some people would say that Obama is anti-business, based on his book, and saying that when he had a desk job, he felt like he was behind enemy lines. Or in the last week, he talked about, he was glowing about the fact that they saved Chrysler and GM, and even though it came out today that the taxpayers are still on the hook for about $42 billion. And the amount of money that went into that was actually more than the Defense Department's budget. That was funneled over.
The Department of State,
or
I think.
Department of State, not Defense, but Department of State. So you look at all of these different factors, and him saying that it was so successful taking over General Motors that in the last week he said, I want to do the same thing to manufacturing jobs and jobs across the spectrum, which is nationalization. And we're always accused of being the fascists. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's pretty scary, because like you say, it turns out I think the 42 million has to do with the stock price change, but as far as because the stock price is going down, so the taxpayers have lost more. Yeah. And I think the actual ticket was like 26 billion, but it's like you say, it's like reflecting more like 42 billion now. Right. But we didn't get the money back, and they're losing money. And it's ridiculous to think that the federal government is going to do a better job. I mean, the federal government took over the Mustang Ranch and lost money. I mean, give me a break. I mean,
and those people know something about that topic.
And you'd think they'd be experts. You would think.
Yeah, you would think.
And you can't.
We're always getting screwed.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't.
I guess they thought that was customer service.
Yeah, servicing your customer can take a couple of different.
avenues, and so they lost money there. And so, like, how do they expect to do any better with GM? I mean, you get, CAFE standards, and you've got the Chevy Volt, And this is not the result of a free market system.
No.
This isn't the free market. This is a semi-free market, and it's becoming more semi than free. If he had his way and does more to the same thing to other companies, basically giving them to unions,
Right.
and the bondholders really got the shaft on that one.
Yeah.
Somebody that had $70,000 in bonds that were going to retire on, I think it was a school teacher,
Yeah.
and she ended up with $200.
You
She
can
had a
retire
bond.
on that, right?
Yeah, $200, sure.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go. It's okay. I mean, because it makes sense for the government to
I mean,
take
it's,
these things over because the companies didn't build that anyway.
Right. And the thing is, and now, well, they may have built it, but they didn't tear it down. They had help.
Yes. Well, there's
You didn't
that.
tear it down by yourself. You had help.
Yes. Exactly.
But then, and so this is the thing. If you look at the Democratic playbook, then you would take that school teacher that lost that $70,000
Right.
and put him in front of a camera and a microphone and describe what happened when the government took it over and gave all the money to the unions. It basically gave half of the company to the unions.
Right.
The unions came out whole
Right.
at the expense of the bondholders and some of the vendors and some of the subsidiaries. They lost 70% of their retirement.
Right. Yeah, it's a mess. So the question is, I mean, if you're talking about the Democrat playbook, and I mean, in the last week we've heard the story of the worker that was at the union plant when Romney shut it down.
When he killed his wife.
Yeah, Romney shut it down 6 years after he was working for the company, and then his wife died 6 years after that. But and she had insurance, but the narrative was that she didn't have insurance and she died of cancer. And it was made to appear as if this happened in a very short amount of time, where it was an 8 to 10 year, 11-year
Timeline
plan.
was compressed.
Yes, and when called on it, even recent spokespeople for the super PAC that put the ad out said there was nothing unfactual about this, and so they'll stoop to any level. If you were on the other side and counseling the Republicans on how to to launch their ad campaigns, any ideas on what you might?
Well, I think these, like I said, I would play a little bit on the emotional thing like they do because it's effective sometimes. Like you say, politics isn't all that rational sometimes. It's emotional. People vote by their emotion.
Yes.
And I mean, I remember in college learning that a child was more apt to change the religion from their parents than political party.
That's interesting.
And so it is a lot of that. We use some of the emotion, but then I would also use some of the ads like they had today, very clearly saying, these guys are taking money out of Medicare. They're ruining it. We're not. We're telling you how to keep it whole.
Yes. And using their own words against them, would you do that at all? I mean, because there's almost no material that you can use.
Oh yeah, there hardly is. I mean, not like they ever make mistakes.
Or even just let the truth come out. For example, Obama running on the platform earlier on of saying that his policies would cause energy to necessarily skyrocket.
Yeah.
And people are wondering, why are energy prices so high? Why are we seeing $4 plus gallons of gas?
I was filling up at the gas station. I found this little sticker on the gas station pump, and it said that, remember that in January of 2009, Inauguration Day, gasoline was $1.79 a gallon, and suggested I remember that in November.
I found some of those Post-it notes in my car.
Oh, is that right?
I have
I
to
wonder
find
how
out.
that happened. They're everywhere.
They seem to be. I don't know how that happened. I know that those things are
Ubiquitous.
videotaped, so I'm not putting them out. But so, in closing, any insights into who you're rooting for between the two tickets for November at that watching party you're planning?
I think that you got to admire somebody that campaigns as well as Obama, because I don't know of anybody else that's campaigned in 57 of the 58 states.
Oh, we're going into the Wayback Machine, but yes, it is interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how many pieces of twisted reporting happen on this. I think that the recent stats that I've seen are about 60% of the reporting on Romney is negative, and so it's not a surprise there.
I think I heard somebody on the radio today that said something that I believe strongly, is that if in November that the Republican ticket wins, that we'll see an immediate boost in the stock market and the economy, just from some knowing that, okay, it's it's going to get better.
Yeah, and I think that there may be that bump, and let's hope that it stays there. But in the meantime, I need you to hold on for just a second. We are going to hear a word from our underwriters that are very close to your and my heart, the Conservative Forum.
Say, well, I say I'm a constitutional law attorney. They say, oh, really? What kind of constitutional law attorney? I say, well, I'm the true kind. The kind that believe that the Constitution is what the Constitution says and what it was intended to say. Anything beyond that is tyranny and should not be allowed.
So it's come to this, my friends. You ready the second American Revolution against a ruling class that simply lectures but does not listen or defend the American people? It is government versus the people. Am I right? Yeah. Look at the Electoral College example, right? A leftist popular challenge to states' rights. You think the founders weren't brilliant people? Did they not know what they were doing by carefully calibrating to get the small states and the big states to come together? Why does Wyoming get 2 senators in California? Actually, I'd rather have Wyoming's 2 senators.
Welcome back to the right side. That was a word from our underwriter, the Conservative Forum. And again, we're joined by Howard Myers, who's the president of the Conservative Forum, and now he's going to go back to speaking on behalf of the forum. Tell us a little bit about what's coming up and how people can find out about the forum.
Find out about the forum. Thank you very much. We are on the web. I have a nice website, www.theconservativeforum.com. And we have our meetings once a month. We bring a well-known conservative speaker to address. And the speaker we have in September is John Fund. This is on September 11th, which is the second Tuesday. Typically it's the first. But on the second Tuesday of the month, September 11th, we have John Fund, very well-known author and writer. In October, we have Jesse Lee Peterson. Jesse Lee Peterson bills himself as the conservative Jesse Jackson, and he lives up to that and more. I love hearing him. In November is November 6th. Several things happen. It's close to Veterans Day, so we're going to have Veterans Appreciation Night. It's also election night, so we're going to have live coverage of the election returns. We'll be watching that during the evening. In addition, we have a speaker who is John Caviani, and he is a Medal of Honor recipient, and he'll be talking to us about liberty and freedom. In December is our Christmas dinner, still the first Tuesday, and we'll have Armstrong and Getty that will be educating and entertaining us. So we're looking forward to that.
Great. And where is the Conservative Forum? Where do the meetings take place?
The meetings take place at the IFES Portuguese Hall in Mountain View at 432 Steerland Road. The doors open at 6:15 and the program begins at 7.
Okay, great. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you at some of those events in the near future.
Thank you.
Thanks again for underwriting as well.
Pleasure.
So in closing this evening, sure, we've had a little bit of fun, or at least Howard and I did. We hope you did as well. But we talked about how Howard would lead the Republicans in their ad creation for TV. I'd like to give a tip to the other side, to the Democrats, on what not to do. Joe Biden, just don't talk. It's probably the best way, but if you do talk, you got to keep the racist remarks inside your head because you're going to offend people. And as far as Obama, talk. You do a wonderful job of doing it, but just stay on the teleprompter, because when you go off and you start to let people know what you really think, you scare us. So in situations where you talk about nationalizing all of the businesses in the country, or you tell entrepreneurs that they didn't really build the businesses, that they've put all of their overtime, sweat, tears, and heartache into and mortgaged their lives in order to accomplish, it's offensive to us. And it's almost like one of those situations where we're kind of embarrassed for you when you let this happen. We know you believe it, but it makes us want to just stop and say, Psst, Mr. President, your inner Marxist is hanging out. You might want to cover up a little bit. But on that note, we've had some fun tonight. Again, we hope you've had fun with us. We'd like to thank you for joining us on the right side. Again, I'm your host, Chris Pareja, and we hope you'll join us again sometime soon. Have a great night.